Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on for this episode. Whether you're listening here in New York City, anywhere else in the country, or around the world, thanks for being here. And I'm super thrilled to be announcing this episode because it's really one that's tying together all the episodes I did in 2018. It's been an absolutely amazing first year of running the podcast. You know, I'm super excited about all the amazing guests I had. They were all truly inspirational. They gave great advice, superb content. And I have to say that if any of you have happened to listen to all of them, fantastic, because you've learned a tremendous amount and really have been uplifted by not only their stories, but what they are doing and making their mark in society today and around the world. And the variety of guests I've had has been incredible. Many of them are tied in with sports. Many of them are athletes. Many of them are tied in with athletes. And many have been veterans. And, you know, these are all areas that I truly believe can use lots of help in, you know, whether it's athletes needing to learn how to make that transition away from their sport and into whether it's a new business or a new job, or veterans that also need that help with transitioning from military life to civilian life. So I'm really super happy that I've done this. I've started this. You know, it's interesting. I really never planned on doing a podcast, but I realized that I was speaking to so many great people and had so many amazing conversations with them that I really wanted to start sharing them for all of you that might be able to really benefit from the content. So what I'm going to do today is give you first a sneak peek at episode 26, which is really the first episode of season 2 with Michaela, Alexis. And she has 130,000 followers on LinkedIn. She's an absolutely amazing young lady. She's really captured the heart of so many people that love hearing her messages. And she's got such amazing advice to give on how to really improve in so many areas by using LinkedIn. And she's really the princess of LinkedIn, the queen of LinkedIn. Whatever she is that of LinkedIn. She's amazing. But let's take a quick step back and take a look at some of the episodes that I did with some of these people that I had on that I'm really so thrilled to have had with me. I had Marnie Schneider, who is basically the lifeblood and the heart behind Keep On Playing, a great organization that supports kids and gets them away from the bad stuff that happens on the streets and onto the diamond. And she's such a dynamo. She was so exciting to talk to be with. You're going to love that episode. You know, Randy Kessler, who is a family lawyer based in Atlanta. This guy has so many great stories of some of the people that he's worked with and dealt with, but he's also started a new company called Starsona, which is a great way that brings athletes and fans together. And you've got to check it out, starsona.com. And that was episode 3 with Randy. He was amazing. Episode 4 brought me to Marcus Ogden. And Marcus, really, I have to give so much credit to. He has introduced me to so many amazing people. I attended his Leadership Academy in Las Vegas earlier this year. He's such a friendly guy, a nice guy, a compelling speaker with a great story of being sort of up and down again, and how he keeps rising back up. A great storyteller, a great speaker. You got to check him out. And that's episode 4. Episode 5 was with Ruben Gonzalez. And Ruben, this is an incredible story. Here's a guy who's not necessarily a big guy, an athletic guy, everything guy. But you know what? This guy has competed in 4 Winter Olympics. 4 of them. That's crazy. But you know what? Even crazier, he's going for his 5th in 2022. And, in Beijing. This guy loves sitting on his butt and sledding down a mountain of ice. I mean, it's crazy. Actually, not a butt. Yeah, I mean, the luge. He's amazing. So wait till you hear that episode again. I followed up with Kim Casey, and Kim and I are actually partnering on some things going forward because she's a dynamo also. She was a professional golfer. She also introduced a new product on Shark Tank, the first season of Shark Tank. She's been an entrepreneur a few times, and now with her Verbatim Press and the work that she's doing to help people become business authors and to write compelling content and get it out on the bookshelves. And you're going to love that episode too. She's a lot of fun. Garrick Jones was my episode 7 guest, and Garrick has been the founder and co-founder of the SDFL, the States Developmental Football League. And he, to me, is really bringing what I think should be happening in all professional leagues. He's introducing the education of the athletes in between the games. He's teaching his athletes to become better at finance and business and law and all kinds of things the tools that they need to have once they've retired. And he's got such a tremendous model in place. You've got to check out that episode. Amobi Okobu, who has a company called A Frugal Athlete, and it is such an important episode to listen to because he really teaches athletes how to be smart with their money, because you and I both know that so many people, whether it's in athletics or entertainment, anybody who's been given a whole lot of money all of a sudden often blows it all of a sudden. And Amobi, who's been a professional soccer player for many years in the MLS, I mean, it's just a super guy, and it was a great episode. That was episode 8. Episode 9 with Ted Studdard. God bless America. Marine Colonel Ted Studdard is an amazing leader, and boy, does he know how to inspire others to become much better leaders and be people that others want to follow. And this is all has to do with not just being a leader in the military, but really bringing it into the corporate environment, where it's just so essential nowadays to have people to really look up to and to be mentors, right? So Ted, just an amazing guy, a super speaker, and just really has given his life to the service in our country, and just a super guy. Episode 10 with Cody Royal. Cody, oh my God, this guy, he's an Aussie. He's in Canada now, and he's the national coach for Aussie Rules football. But also, he's brilliant with what he wrote a book called Where Others Won't, and it was a book filled with ideas that he turns on their head. He kind of says, look, you know what? Some of these guys, like Steve Jobs and some of the others, Warren Buffett, etc., they don't always know what they're talking about. They're not always right. And he talks about some ideas that he's got that really transforms everything. An amazing book and a super conversation. He's a really great guy, super guy. And especially for all those out there that love the Aussie accent, he's got it. J.R. Tolver, episode 11, he's an ex-NFLer, and he's running his own insurance practice. And we really talk about how he wants to really transform how people are looking at insurance. A lot of times we tend to feel that it's something we're kind of stuck having. And, you know, maybe we are, but look, there's so many ways that we can transform it into a way that he's teaching us how it's important to have this, but how you can make it interesting and how you can learn all about needing things like, auto insurance, house insurance, errors and omissions, business. I mean, there's all kinds of things that he will teach you about. And that's what making doing business with him the way to go. Michael O'Brien. Now, Michael O'Brien is a guy who, look, he's ridden his bicycle 1 billion miles. He's super athletic. But you know what? Here's a guy who had a near fatal accident. This guy basically died. But what he's done since that time is he really turned everything around, and he really woke up. And now is a superb inspirational speaker. He speaks in companies about all kinds of things, leadership and management and sales. I mean, he's just a brilliant speaker with a great story behind him. Chelsea Mandello. Boy, I thought she was amazing. She really is. She served our country for several years, 7 years in the Navy. But during that time in the Navy, she discovered a need for people that are trying to send their loved ones, the other men and women in the armed services, packages and things, and they just weren't getting to that troop, to the service member. And so she started a company called Troopster, which now allows you and me and anybody else to pre-order and order a package that gets delivered through her service. It's a great thing that she's doing, and you'll really love that conversation. Now, Lauren Walsh, she's a dynamo. She's one of these young ladies who is in the midst of helping a variety of professional athletes really improve their branding. Because we all know now, especially with social media being so prevalent, you've got to have the right personal branding. You've got to have the right messaging out there. If you don't, I don't want to say you're screwed, but we've all seen athletes that have done some really stupid things online, right? And she's there to correct all of that. And just a great conversation with a great young lady. She's so smart. She's so ambitious. She's going to go so far. Just a great conversation with Lauren. Rudy Reyes, boy, man, this guy, first of all, I like to joke with him about how he's got such a smooth and velvety voice. This is a gentleman who was working in Starbucks not too long ago and really turned that around to now he's a TV personality. He does sports reporting for a TV station in Wyoming, but he's also got his own radio show. He's interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of super influential people, sports stars and celebrities and comedians and all kinds of things. Great radio show and a super guy. Rudy Reyes, Mad Dog Radius. So anyway, that's Rudy. We had Grace Luchik, and Grace is, just a world record holder. Like, I would love to be a world record holder. And she's done that in rowing, which is an incredibly hard sport to do, in my opinion anyway. Not only does it take physical stamina and grit, but the mental thing too. And she's competed in the Olympics, and now she's working in corporate America, but she's just got a great story about how she really started training at a younger age and really worked her way up all the way through the Olympics and setting a world record. Great episode. Gus Frerotte. Well, look, here's a guy who's spent 15 years in the NFL, all kinds of accomplishments, game-winning touchdowns, all this kind of stuff. But you know what? His impact since he's left the game has really been magnificent. And he's involved with a couple of companies, one of which I'm partnering with, that I believe will be really game changers in a lot of different ways. And it's a great episode. You'll learn all about those companies and more if you listen to that one. Eric Cusin, episode 18. Eric, I met Eric last year, and he's got such an important organization that's really bringing to the forefront and exposing the stigma that often is associated with mental health and mental trauma, really. And what he's doing is bringing in dozens of athletes, hundreds of, like all these athletes and celebrities that are speaking up and basically saying, look, it's okay to talk about it. We've all gone through this. We're all going through this. And his movement, it's called We're All a Little Crazy. And what he's done is hashtag same here. In other words, hashtag I'm going through it, you're going through it, same here. And you should check it out. We're all a little crazy.org. Check out the website. It's a great organization. If there's any way that you can be a part of it, that's amazing. And Eric's a great guy. Corey Mays, NFLer, who was smart enough to understand the importance of preparing for his second career after the NFL while he was still playing. And he just recently finished off his MBA at Notre Dame. Super smart guy. He's got experience in the oil and gas industry. He's also doing public speaking. He's doing some angel investing. But here's a guy who gives some amazing advice to athletes on how it's so important to prepare for your life after sport. Great guy. Chris Christian. Now, this was one of the more interesting guys I've had on because he's had, how many people do you know have written a song that Elvis Presley recorded? Incredible. But that was just the start of his career. Since that time, he's been involved with 2,000 songs and helped record 100 record albums with such a variety of musicians. And he discovered Amy Grant. He was involved with so many artists that really were starting out. and he's run a studio, a TV studio in movies, and he's a co-owner of WNBA team, the Dallas Wings. Just an amazing conversation. So many great stories. You've got to check out that episode. Anja Bolberg. Anja. So she was an Olympian on the Danish ski team, an incredible athlete. But what she's doing now is she's helping executives and professionals and other athletes really stay on top of their fitness. But she also has, and she hosts a great radio show. It's on a YouTube show, I guess, the Athlete Story. And she brings in some really great guests to interview, and I was lucky enough to be one of them. Thank you, Anja. But that was a great episode. Chris Jackson, episode 22. Chris, I'm good friends with. Such a great guy. He served in our services for 8 years. He was in the Army. Really did some great stuff there. Served a year in Iraq. Some great stories from that. But since then, he also was in law enforcement. He's just one of these guys that constantly gives. He gives his service. He gives his time. And right now, his business. It's called Warrior Wealth Solutions, and really focuses on helping veterans make that transition into civilian life. It's not easy, but he's a great guy, and he's doing his best to really help out. And I'm trying my best to help him out because I think it's such a worthy cause. Just a great guy and a super episode to listen to, episode 22. Episode 23, Corey Proctor. Oh my God, Corey is I think I'd love to be right behind him when he runs through a wall of bricks. This guy is determined, and he's got such a great positive message, but one in which he always talks about really lifting yourself off the ground and pushing forward. And it's all about whether you're on the corporate side or you're running your business or you're just trying to get back on your feet again. Corey's an inspirational speaker, whether it's something faith-based or corporate-based or athlete-based. Corey's such a great guy. He's a funny guy, nice guy. Got a really cool beard also. I've got beard envy without a doubt. And then episode 24, the one I just recorded recently with Joe Jacoby. Now, here's a guy. He won an Olympic gold medal in a sport that no American had ever won a gold before. And he's taken that experience and become one of the top performance coaches out there. And I don't mean performance like, helping you run a little bit faster on the track, which he can certainly do, but really goes into companies and really breaks down the whole notion of, we got the CEO and then you got the mailroom person. Well, you know what? Everyone's equal in his eyes. And what he does is he shows how everyone can work together and collaborate to really achieve a common goal. And great guy, funny guy, really an amazing story about what he's accomplished. So there you go, 24 episodes. I've loved every one of them. They've all been wonderful. They've been great, super people. It's really been eye-opening to me because it's really opened so many doors for me and my business, and being able to coach a lot of these people with their businesses and partnering with many of them. So it's been a great experience. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I've done a lot of talking here, but I'm going to now jump into the little teaser with my interview with Michaela, Alexis. She's great. It's just a 2.5, 3-minute chunk. And after that, I'm going to replay episode 1 with Theo Fleury. I didn't even talk about Theo yet, but he's the one that started it all. And this episode really rocked me to the bone. He's been through so much, a lot of trauma and a lot of healing. And he talks about that trauma and that healing in really an incredible episode 1 with Theo Fleury. And I'm replaying it here after my clip with Michaela. And you're going to love it. Thanks to all of you for being supporting and for listening. And I look forward to an amazing season 2 of the Make Your Mark podcast. How are you going to go get them? I hope you do. And look, check out my website anytime, markmoyer.com, for access to all of these episodes, access to other great content, whether it's for your business or career. And I really hope you enjoyed this clip with Michaela and the rebroadcast of the Theo Fleury episode. Happy listening. In your opinion, for someone fairly new to LinkedIn, once they get their profile optimized,
Yeah.
What's the best way, in your opinion, for them to really grow a network of like people that they should be connecting? It's one thing to be like reaching out to, connect with everybody, but that's that can be a waste of time, right? So how do you get an optimal network to be connected to?
So LinkedIn groups are probably your best place to start. So there's two ways you can approach it. So there's groups that are local. So for me, it would be like Ottawa professionals, like business communities within my area. And then there's people within my industry or niche. So I might look into social media groups. I'm part of event planner groups. So I want to reach more event planners. I'm a speaker. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to start trying to spark up conversations that way as well. So there's two approaches there. The other way that you can do it is search. Search filters are fantastic. So if you want to reach other marketers within your community, search for marketers within your community, reach out to them and say that. Like, don't just send the message or don't just send the connection request, but actually say, I'm really looking to connect with other marketers within the community. I've seen some of your work. It looks really cool. I'd love to follow you and see what else you're up to and have a conversation. People are very receptive to messages as long as you're honest and you're transparent about what your motives are. So I think that's another way. Hashtags are really fantastic. Hashtags are relatively new on LinkedIn. So you can look up different communities, see what other people are sharing in terms of their hashtags and follow those hashtags so it shows up in your feed. So that would be another way. My favorite way of connecting is when I listen to a podcast or when I read a book, the first thing that I do after I've consumed it is I go on LinkedIn. I see if the author or the interviewer or interviewee is on the platform, and I reach out to them and I reference either the book or the podcast episode that I listened to. And so that's just a great way of, you like this person, well, chances are they're also connected to other people that you're going to like, right? So you look at their content, you interact with them, you see who else is interacting with them, and your network grows from there.
That's great. That's awesome because it's funny. I like to do the same thing where if I read an article that's particularly compelling, and it might be in another magazine, Fortune or Forbes or something, I'd like to do the same thing. And it's interesting because a lot of times the authors or whoever's putting this out, they're caught off guard a little bit because you're right.
People don't do that.
Don't normally do it. They don't do that, right?
They don't do that.
So they're flattered. They're like, "You read it? Wow, that's awesome!"
You know what I love, and this is one of the reasons that I love LinkedIn so much, is that I've had posts where I've talked about a book. There was one post that I did, and I was talking about Never Split the Difference by
Fox.
And it's amazing. It's such a good book. Anyway, so I post this thing. It's a review of the book. And I'm connected to Chris because we've connected after I read the book. And he goes on and he's having conversations with people in the threads, and I'm asking him questions and he's answering the questions, which is that information is nowhere. It's not on the internet. It's not in a podcast interview. It's nowhere. That's so valuable to have an actual conversation with the author or the person that you admire is just, it's just mind-blowing.
And I love it. And I tell people sort of almost say only on LinkedIn. I mean, the way my whole, a lot of my coaching shifted over to helping athletes out. And I just not randomly, but I connected with Theo Fleury, who's a big name, especially in Canada, because his autobiography is the single highest selling autobiography in Canadian history, 600,000 copies. And he has such a compelling story, but I reached out to him on LinkedIn and he accepted. And I was like, wow, this is it
crazy?
And then we started a dialogue and we spoke for several hours. I gave him some coaching and then he ended up, writing an endorsement for the book and all this stuff. Theo Fleury, number 14, Calgary Flames, Rangers, etc. This guy was a hockey superstar. He won an Olympic gold medal. He was a several-time All-Star, scored almost 1,100 points in his career, extremely accomplished player. But much more importantly is what he brings to the table now and how he's making his mark every single day. This is a guy who went to the deepest of depths after hockey, and he's come out of it not only a new man, but somebody who is delivering an incredible message every single day. He's a funny guy, smart, compassionate, and he comes from so much knowledge too. I mean, this guy has been through it all, and you're going to hear all about that. This was a pretty deep conversation, fairly serious, but the message is really important and you're going to absolutely love this episode. But before we get started, if you haven't done so already, check out the podcast on iTunes, leave a review, subscribe, get involved, send me an email. Would love to hear from you, mark@markmoyer.com. And let's do this, man. I'm excited for you to hear Theo Fleury. This guy is one of the most incredible guests to have on a podcast. And let's do this. Mr. Theo Fleury, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. It's a thrill and an honor to have you here. You're a great guy, a kooky guy, a fun guy, an amazing guy, and we're going to cover all that stuff today. So, Theo, say hi from, I'm assuming, Calgary area.
Hello from Calgary, Alberta, where it's a lovely 23 degrees today. We just had a big hailstorm the other night, so we're back to normal again.
Yeah, and of course, for everyone listening, not in Canada or not everywhere else on the planet other than the good old United States, 23 degrees is actually probably, 70-something?
Yeah.
I guess I should know that. Anyway, but it'll be 23 degrees Fahrenheit soon enough, I'm sure. So today what we're going to talk about, we're going to cover a lot of ground. I'll talk in a minute about how I had a chance to meet with you, Theo, and with Kim and so on. But we're going to cover a little bit about your career in the NHL and in growing up in hockey, but also talk about a couple of things throughout your childhood and your teen years, and then that led to really where you are today. So we're going to cover lots of ground with that. We're also going to maybe throw out a bunch of advice to our listeners, both from your expertise and perspective and a couple of bits from me as well. With all that said, Theo, here we go. Number one, why don't you tell me briefly a little bit about what you are doing today, and then we'll sort of work backwards from that. But what's keeping you busy these days, Theo?
Let's see. I primarily do speaking engagements around the subject of trauma, mental health, and addiction, which keeps me quite busy. I think we do 50 to 60 of those a year. And I do a lot of charity work as well. So I have my own foundation here in Calgary. Just recently finished our Victor Walk last week. So we pick a province every year and we walk across the province over a 5-day period, making 5 stops at communities and holding rallies where we talk about childhood sexual abuse and childhood rape, which brings awareness to the subject in smaller communities, all over Canada. And then I am in the process of writing a book at the beginning stages. Started doing another documentary as well. And golf.
In between all that.
Yep.
That's awesome. It's funny, when we first met, what really got this all going, our, I guess, getting to know each other in relationship and so forth, was that I was inspired to help retired athletes make a transition. And I actually was on LinkedIn, of all places, and was really looking for compelling people to connect with. And I came across your profile and I sent you an invitation. And I've sent a few of these out to a variety of retired athletes. And you actually were one of the first people to answer back. And we started a dialogue and we started having conversations about how to really help bolster your speaking career and how to really leverage the power of networking to, increase business. But then it grew to you saying you were going to be in New York City for an event. And that event was the, We're All a Little Crazy, their launch with Eric Cusin. And you don't necessarily know this, Theo, really, but I've been doing a fair amount of interacting with Eric since that time, and I've been referring him other athletes that really want to speak out about these issues. So what you started by actually inviting me to that event really has started to pay dividends for hopefully that organization and, introduce them to more people. So it's funny how a lot of times we don't really know the true impact we're having on people, but I wanted to let you know about that.
I learned this at a very young age when I got to Calgary. When I first started playing with the Flames was, we were a city of 550,000 people at the time. And now we're pushing over 1.5 million in 30 years. That's how much the city has grown. But not only were we expected to be great hockey players for the Flames franchise, but we were also encouraged to be good community citizens as well, which meant we were expected to get involved in charity work and be seen in the community, et cetera, et cetera. And because of that, it was a lot easier of a transition after playing hockey to get involved with business and all that stuff. So, I always tell young athletes that even though you have millions and millions of dollars and you probably don't, need a job post-career, I always stress the importance that while you're playing, that you develop relationships in the community that you're playing, because when you're finished playing, you can't just do nothing. And those relationships that you develop when you're playing in whatever city you're playing in will be absolutely beneficial when you leave the game, because most people don't realize is that once you leave the game, like it's over, it's done with, and you have more than half your life left to live, and you got to do something. And so it's important to develop relationships away from the rink and away from the game, and if that's business or charity work or whatever it is, those relationships that you develop during your playing days will be crucial and beneficial when you retire.
Well, yes. And, it's interesting because a lot of athletes suffer actually their own type of trauma where for many, many years, they've dedicated their entire lives to their sport. And then suddenly one day they wake up and they don't need to go to the rink or to the field or to the gym or to wherever it is that they practice. They're done. And they go through basically what some people call a first death, where they're done completely with that life. And now they need to reinvent themselves and figure out, well, what's next with my next life going forward? And a lot of times these are kids. I mean, they're people that are in their 20s and 30s. They're not, 55, 60 as many other people retire, or 70. So they need to figure out, well, what's next? And not just what's next, but how do they feel that same sort of sense of whether it's competitiveness or being part of a team. And, some of them really struggle with that. And I think what I'm sure what you address with some of with your talks, but also what I try to do with my, with the athletes that I help, is really talk to them about how to become relevant again and how to contribute again and feel like they're part of a team again. So you're absolutely right. And I'm glad you give that advice to the athletes actually while they're playing, because they need to hear that message from people just like you that have come out of the game and have certainly really taken with it, run with it, right?
Well, the objective is, leave the world a better place than when you came, right?
Right.
And it's not always what you leave on the playing field that'll be your legacy. It's what you do to improve the quality of people's lives that you come in contact with after, you leave the playing field. That's what's, probably the most important thing, and probably, a bigger reason than just, what you left on the field. It's important to use your status, so to speak, to, like I said, improve the quality of people's lives. And we live in a crazy world where there's lots of crazy things happening. And I work in the field of trauma, mental health, and addiction because I had my own past history with all three of those things. But what I've discovered is it's probably the biggest epidemic we have on the planet is trauma, mental health, and addiction. And so because I've had my own experience and been able to find the courage and the strength to be able to tell my own story, it's helped other people, also find their own voice and start a journey of healing and a journey of self-discovery and, all these amazing things that, are beneficial, while we're on the earth for, 70, 80, 90 years is to try and figure it out. And then once we figure it out is to give back to, all those people that supported us by buying tickets and jerseys and hockey cards and, you name it. So that was something that was instilled early on in our careers.
Well, that's brilliant. And what's interesting, and I'm sure you see this happen in every speech that you give, every appearance that you make, that the whole concept that when people hear that it's okay to speak about what they've gone through and share with what they've gone through, the enormity of the weight that's taken off their shoulders, right? That they can, it's got to be just so suffocating when it's all carried inside, right? And then once they feel the ability to release it and an audience that's willing to hear it and help, it's just got to be incredible to see that weight lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah, and that's, what gets me out of bed every day is, but I think more importantly, what you're talking about, Mark, is you're talking about vulnerability. And the more I was willing to be vulnerable, meaning telling my story, which I told in a very vulnerable way, what happened was it created safety for people. And then, once you have safety, then, that's when the magic of healing happens, is when people share their lives and their stories in a very vulnerable way. And you were witness to that in New York during the We're All a Little Crazy launch. Was, you have a bunch of Olympic athletes, pro athletes, former professionals that had gone through some mental health issues, and they were able to come out and tell their story in a very vulnerable way and join a team of people. And what's happened because of that is it's created that safety and that space where other people who struggle with mental health issues, it gives them a place to, talk about this openly without shame, without guilt, without, all those crippling things that comes with, the stigma of trauma, mental health, and addiction.
Oh, absolutely. And, the best thing about, I think, all that you're doing and that other organizations like, We're All a Little Crazy and so on, it's just, again, the awareness. It's just getting the word out there to as many people as possible. And, that's a lot of how you're making your mark today and going forward. But now I'd like to hit a little bit of a reset button and go backwards a little bit and just talk really briefly about your career, especially on the your hockey career. I mean, you had really a fantastic, from hockey perspective, a great career. You had, nearly 1,100 points. You played for a few teams. You were a 7-time All-Star. You won an Olympic gold medal. It was gold, right?
Absolutely. And we beat you guys' asses. We beat you guys' asses. So
maybe I can delete this part from the broadcast. Anyway, damn it all. You had to mention that. Anyway, anyway, and then, but also, look, you had a great career while you were in Calgary. You came over to New York. I met you, and I'm assuming you remember the day I met you 16 years ago, whatever it was. Not at all, but it was. The Rangers every year had a charity event, and they had a casino night, and I'm a season ticket holder, and I was at one of these events, and I had a chance to take a picture with you. And it's funny because, I still look the same, which is really strange. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, but anyway, and fast forward to more recently, really getting a chance to hear what I consider to be really an incredible story. And, I've read your books, and, I happen to love Conversations with a Rattlesnake, which to me, it's just so interesting to see and read about your conversations with Kim. And it's such a great flow to it. It's really, even though it's heavy and it's long, it's really easy to read. It
was something that had never been done before. Was a conversation between two people back and forth, and it really is a great book, and we've had incredible feedback from people who have read it, where, you know, we sort of were able to make sense of, you know, their trauma experience and all of that. And getting back to the original question about my hockey career, you know, it seems like that was a lifetime ago. And like I said, what I've discovered is something that's probably way more important than hockey, and that is that ability and opportunity to reach out to people who are in pain and suffering. Because when I'm out on the road, that's all I see on a daily basis is people that are in pain and people that are suffering from mental health issues, addiction issues, or a lot of them don't even connect it back to their trauma experience as children. And so sort of being that person who is willing to talk about the tough stuff, what it's done is, like I said, it's created a safe place and has eliminated some of the stigma attached to, you know, all three of these things. And it's allowed people to come forward and, you know, find their voice and use their voice for the first time in their life. And it's an amazing experience to meet somebody and in a 5 to 10 minute meeting, see them, you know, completely change when they find their voice and they talk about the pain and the suffering and the failed relationships and everything that comes with, you know, experiencing trauma as a child. Most people that approach me, you know, their eyes are on the floor, their shoulders are slumped. And, you know, in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, that changes. You know, their eyes get brighter and their head picks up and, you know, they're actually looking you in the eye. And then when you see them walk away, you know, they have a little bit more jump in their step. They have a little bit more confidence. And that's what it's all about. And especially being a life coach, that's all you want, is to provide that inspiration and to provide the hope and that they can change their lives and become better than, you know, the way that they are now.
So now I want to shift gears a little bit and really I want to talk about what got you to this point. You know, for hockey fans, they remember you as a player, and you were, I think, you were one of my favorites, not because I'm saying that because you were here, but you were a smaller guy like I am. You're feisty, you know, but you can score. And that was great. But a lot of the feistiness and the fighting and so forth probably had a little bit of there was a reason for some of that and what was sort of inside you and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And why don't you just tell the sort of story about how a career was sort of wrapping up and what was it that triggered you to sort of stop all the stuff you were doing and turn things around?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's hard to believe that 14 years ago I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth ready to pull the trigger and end my life, but not because I wanted to die, but because I was completely exhausted from living in emotional pain and suffering. And I tried everything on the planet to sort of get rid of this emotional pain. And, you know, how I got there was, you know, both my parents as children experienced trauma in their life. And, you know, that manifested itself into addictions. And my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a prescription pill addict. And so, you know, my earliest memories as a child were always a home that was very chaotic and sometimes violent. There was a lot of arguing, and because I was the oldest in the family at the time, you know, at 5 years old, I had a referee jersey on, you know, standing in between the middle of my parents, you know, keeping them from hurting each other and saying horrible things to each other. And you know, at the time, you know, I didn't know that particular scene or incident, you know, would affect me. And then, you know, right after that, I discovered hockey, and hockey became this place where, you know, it was the great escape for me. And I realized that if I was playing hockey, I didn't have to be at home, and I didn't have to deal with my mom's depression and anxiety. And a lot of times I didn't have to be at home when my dad got home from work and he was inebriated, and then my mom would poke the bear, et cetera, et cetera. And so, hockey became, like I said, my happy place. And everything that I wasn't getting at home, I got at the rink, respect and love and teammates. And I felt that I belonged somewhere, et cetera, et cetera. And then for the simple fact that I was at the rink, guess what I was doing? I was practicing every day, skating, shooting, passing. And then I became this phenom hockey player and quickly realized that I had an opportunity and a chance to maybe make a living someday playing hockey. And so that became, my sole focus. And as I'm climbing the ladder and I have this dream, I run into this coach of mine who basically promised me a one-way ticket to the NHL if I listened to him. And so I put all my faith and trust, and I actually moved away from home when I was 15 years old to get better competition. And what happened over a 2.5-year period was that, that coach, he raped me 150 times over a 2.5-year period. And, what I was left with was a lot of guilt, a lot of anger, resentment, and all these things. And so, the end of my hockey career as a professional athlete wasn't very pretty, and my addictions got the best of me, and I got kicked out of the NHL. And then, in 2009, I came out with my autobiography, and I told the whole entire story. Playing with Fire is the name of the book. And what happened after that was, by writing that book, I found the true purpose for my life, and that was to help other people who had similar experiences such as mine. And I got run over by people who either read my story, listened to a podcast, read my book, or saw the documentary or whatever it was. And I realized that by finding my own voice, by putting words and my voice to, what I experienced as a child and as an adolescent, and then how addictions got the best of me, was, I related to a whole bunch of other people who had similar experience, and the rest is basically history, because I haven't stopped since 2009. And, I've built a really great brand. The Fleury brand is a brand that people trust, and people that, want me to come and speak at their various events, whether that's corporate or charity or junior high schools or high schools. And I've been in the prison system now for the last 5 years. I've been to 17 prisons speaking to inmates about, trauma, mental health, and addiction, because, most of the guys that are in the prison system, have had that similar experience such as mine. And yeah, so, I feel very blessed and very fortunate that I've been able to get to this place. It hasn't been easy, and it's been difficult at times, but having gone through and gotten to the other side, now I'm in a position to help people. And I think for, everybody that's listening today, I think that a part of everything that you do has to be giving back and helping people, because we weren't put on this earth to suffer in silence. We were put on this earth to be in relationship with one another and help people get to where they need to go. And, that's basically my mission statement. When you punch in theofleury.life into your computer, that's the first thing you see, when our website opens, is the mission statement. And it's about helping people get to where they need to go. And, that comes in all shapes, forms, sizes, and different types of trauma and addiction issues and mental health issues.
Well, the and I think a lot of what you're finding, Theo, is that every day and every person that you impact. I mean, well, let me take a step back. One of the things that one of the conversations I had fairly recently was with a couple of people over at the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they were a little frustrated because they said, "Geez, there's so many Olympians," and I'm sure it's the same in Canada and everywhere else, that they leave their sport, whatever it was. It could be bobsledding, archery, kayaking, whatever. That there's no professional league after that, and they struggle. They suddenly stop competing, and they don't have a plan B. And so they were frustrated at the USOC because they're saying, look, we can't help all these people. It's overwhelming. And so I said, look, just start with one. That's what I have it on my board over here. Start with one. Yeah. And what that means is, look, you just impact one person, and that one person will spread the word for you. And I'm sure it's the same with your speaking engagements and so forth, where those people that see you, they may go home and talk to their family or their friends or their relatives, and the word spreads. And when I first went out on the speaking circuit, I was completely overwhelmed because I realized the enormity and the societal issue and stigma and everything. And I have a spiritual teacher who's an Aboriginal woman, she, I call her Grandma Ruth. And, I went to her and I said, hey, I am completely overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, whatever, And, she basically said to me, all you can do is help one person at a time. And, when she said that, that took all the pressure off and sort of narrowed my focus as to what I needed to do on a daily basis to touch one person's life if I could. And that was the best advice, that I've been given to date, especially dealing with the enormity of this epidemic. Well, yeah. And look, it's, and hopefully it becomes less and less of an epidemic, the more people feel comfortable coming out, right, and turning out and speaking out about it. And that's what so much of this is all about. It's really increasing. Again, we talked about this, but the awareness. So I want to shift just for a minute to something that I'd love to really maybe help you out a little bit with. I mean, what we talked about a while ago was the notion of using social media as a platform to get more of the message out. And you're a superstar on social media. I mean, you are everywhere. I see you on Twitter all the time and on Facebook. You're everywhere, which is great. And I'm sure you have an awesome team that helps you with all that.
No, I do it all myself.
Do you really? You're amazing. Incredible. But with that said,
because then I get to control the content. I get to control the message, and it's me. It's not. I think that too many athletes and celebrities have the wrong people running their social media stuff, and it's not personal and it's not them. It's so I like to do all of my stuff on my own, and I needed to go through the learning process as well to understand it and utilize it, and because it's when it's used the right way, it is an amazing tool. We have spent $0 on advertising. All of our speaking requests and everything we do comes in off social media, and it's just a great tool if you use it properly. But it has to be you. It can't be some assistant that you're paying big bucks to, because their beliefs and their way of thinking gets in the way of communicating what your true message is.
Yeah, absolutely right. I get a kick out of every once in a while. We won't get into the politics end of thing, but I've been having some fun seeing some of your interactions with people about politics in Canada and some other things. But with that said, I think that I couldn't agree with you more, because I often wonder who's handling social media for some of these people that we see some either outrageous things or maybe just not really overly educated answers to things. So I agree. But what I want people to do, if you happen to be listening now and you're online, is to go on to theofleury.life, because there's some great testimonials. If you scroll down a little bit on the homepage, the testimonials are amazing. And one thing I'd encourage you to do, Theo, is take some of those testimonials. And I would actually, I like to, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time. And you did an amazing job of really transforming your profile into something that's really fantastic. But one thing I would probably do is add some, right now in looking at your profile, you've got just maybe one recommendation. And I'd love to get you to reach out to some of these people that have given you testimonials and add those to your profile on LinkedIn, because the more people that go on here and see what you're doing, and then they scroll down and see there's such powerful testimonials that I would, if possible, try to throw those on there. I think that'd be great.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah, you should. And then also, I've noticed that, you've got, obviously you've got a fair amount of activities and posts and so forth on here. Just keep that up, because people do like to go through and read, what you're up to, what your stories are. And then, especially with I would maybe even start considering writing some articles. And what I mean by that is that, you've got a fair amount. Look, you've got so much material you can write about. But I think if you start adding articles onto LinkedIn, people read these things. And what's going to happen is that if you've got an article, it maybe says, 4 signs to look for when going through a traumatic experience, or, here's how I would address blah, 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 blah. But then at the bottom, have a call to action where you're saying, make sure to go to my website, theofleury.life, to see some great, additional information on how to blah, blah, blah. Or I would love to speak in your neck of the woods about the importance of awareness for trauma, mental health, and addiction. I think it's a great vehicle that people really aren't using at all on LinkedIn. There's a lot of other stuff, and people look at your profile and they might read some of your posts and so forth. But I think if you start adding content specific for LinkedIn, and the beauty of LinkedIn is that there's no real editorial aspect to it. It's you writing it. So it's you and your message. So that might be something you'll want to consider doing at some point.
Okay. Well, the only thing is I'm a terrible writer. And so what we've done is we have actually started doing some video blogs, which is a lot easier for me to do. And because it's summertime, and I'd rather be playing golf than posting stuff at this point. But we will start again in the fall with doing more video blog stuff, which I will put on LinkedIn and use all of this, And the amazing thing was that when you reached out, you talked about LinkedIn, and we made some very, very subtle changes to my LinkedIn profile, and we gained exponential followers in a very, very short amount of time, just tweaking a few things and doing some minor tweaks to my profile. So I will definitely take those suggestions, and when it's time to go back to work in the fall here, we will definitely be doing some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that. It's true, though. I will say your profile looks fantastic now, and I think that anybody that goes to it will have a really good indication of, what you do and what you bring to the table, and just the, I'm thrilled to speak to someone like you, mostly because, again, what this podcast is meant to be is all about how people, whether they're retired athletes, current athletes, or people in the sports industry, are making their mark and how they're making a positive impact, right? And not just, an athlete that happens to hang out at clubs and spends all his or her money and so forth, but right? But instead, you're positively making an impact, and that's what I'm drawn to as for podcast guests. So I think it's fantastic what you've been doing and we're continuing.
I find a lot of celebrities and former athletes, they create foundations, but, they aren't in the trenches, they're just basically using, the name, but that's it, and we actually get in the trenches and we work with people one-on-one. I do coaching, one-on-one coaching, and when I'm at events, I'm there till the last person gets an autograph or wants to take a picture or wants to have a conversation. Like, that stuff's really, really important, that, you just don't show up and, whatever it is that they've, agreed to, you always need to go over and above everything that you've promised in the contract, that's written. And that's why we get all these great testimonials from people is because people say, hey, this guy's just a regular guy, a normal guy, a nice guy, that kind of stuff. And that's really important because word of mouth marketing is still the best way for you to market yourself. And the more people you get in front of at events and get that opportunity to have a little bit of one-on-one time with you, whether that's 30 seconds or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, that little conversation can change somebody's life. And then they're going to go and they're going to talk about, this experience that they had with you. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's a normal guy. Man, he stayed right till the very, very last person. That stuff is important. Like, we talk about humility all the time. And to me, that's just being humble. And I learned that from the Gretzkys and the Lemieux and Sakic's and Yzermans that I had the opportunity to spend some time with and learn from them and learn leadership from them. Was that, they were all humble guys. They always made everybody feel important, and that's what it's all about. Sometimes, but sports is very ego driven, right? And, when you retire from the game, it's a very humbling experience because you are no longer the star. You are no longer, on billboards and magazine articles and all this stuff, and so, it's very humbling. And if you don't have that, humble part in your DNA, you better learn it quick because, it's really important post-career to give of yourself as much as you can.
Well, Theo, you right there, you brought up a great point. And, I want to tell you a quick story about a time that, back when I was younger, I was really interested in meeting professional, at the time, baseball players and getting their autographs and getting them to sign baseballs. And, and I was younger and I thought that was really awesome. And I met some players that were friendly and they'd sort of smile at me and so forth. But there was one player, his name was Brooks Robinson, and Brooks played third base for the Baltimore Orioles. He's a Hall of Famer, and he played in the 60s and 70s. And I remember meeting him in probably at some point in the 1980s. And I'll never forget this interaction. That I've met hundreds of athletes since that time, but I'll never forget walking up to him, and I was holding my baseball to get it signed. And as he's signing it, he stops signing, looks up at me and says, "Hey, Mark, it's really, nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? Tell me more about yourself." And I kind of did one of those, huh? what? Like, why do you, and I kind of looked behind me like, who's he talking to? It caught me so off guard that this guy who's had, he's a Hall of Famer, he's got all, MVP awards, all this stuff. He's accomplished so much. And he actually stopped wanted to know what I did. And I'll never forget that moment. And when I talk to other athletes now, I tell them, listen, you can't possibly imagine the power that you hold when you actually appear to give a flying crap about the person you're speaking to. Like, you actually engage with them and draw them into your world to an extent. And just what you said, Theo, man, if you stay later and you're talking to each person and you're engaged with them, they'll never forget that, and they will appreciate that, and they'll listen to your message even more and even stronger because you're connecting with them. And, we both know lots and lots of people that mail it in when they make appearances. They give their motivational speech, and then there's like smoke trailing their sneakers as they get the hell out of Dodge, right? They get out of there. But if you're the guy that sticks around, that's it, man. That's how you make that connection. So I'm so glad you brought that up. That's amazing.
And at the end of the day, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else,
What? You do? Anyway, I had no idea you wore pants. Anyway, so look, a couple quick last things. I guess number one, how can our listeners make an impact with whether it's you or your foundation? What's the best way to make an impact? For
sure. So we're on all social media channels: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our foundation is called breakingfreefoundation.ca. Is how you can get in touch with us through there. And the website is theofleury.life is how you can get a hold of us. And like I said, I try to post a couple times a day, and then if there's some interaction that needs to happen, that's really important too, is commenting too. When people are asking you questions on social media, it's really important to interact with your group of people. Is great advice. I was given very early on when I first started doing social media. So, but yeah,
it's all about the engagement. You're absolutely right. And so also if they, you do a lot of speaking. Is there an easy way? What's the best way to find out for the average person in Canada? Where can they find out a schedule of where you're speaking next? Is there?
Yeah, we have an events page on our website. So we just go to the website and click on events. We keep a very updated schedule as to where and when I'm going to be around different places. So.
Super. And listen, go on to Amazon or your local bookstore, etc. You've got to read these books that Theo, you've written. I'm maybe a little biased towards it, but I love the book you did with Kim. Conversations with a Rattlesnake, which to me really lays out a lot of what you went through and continue to go through. And there's so many funny moments in there too. I'll keep it sort of PG related, but I remember the 72 uses of the F word or something. And I was like thinking, wait, I think I've probably used all, maybe 68 of them or something. So that's amazing, among other things.
Yeah, I always tell people who, come up to me and said, if they took all of the swear words out of Playing with Fire, it would only be 50 pages. But then I quickly tell them, hey, I grew up in a locker room where, the F word was used as a verb, a noun, an adjective, all these things. So,
oh yeah, totally. I mean, I play in a men's hockey league, adult league, and we had a game last night. And yes, I can fully agree with that. It's still don't worry, that still goes on every day and night, and I'm sure almost any locker room anywhere for any sport. So I think it's part of being very competitive, and that's great. That was such a funny segment, but there's so many more. So Theo, listen, I'll tie together some loose ends now, but listen, you've clearly demonstrated how you make your mark every single day, and with again, one person at a time, but also quite frequently with lots of people at a time. But that just gets magnified. And, you've really sort of completely reinvented yourself to the better, and are obviously a role model for any other athlete that's either playing or coming out of their sport. They should really follow with what you're doing. And maybe if it's not necessarily speaking on the issues that you're speaking on, but they may have gone through different things that they can really speak about.
Well,
and,
trauma is trauma,
Right.
It leaves us all feeling the same emotional pain and suffering, right? And, the brain doesn't decipher between emotional and physical pain, so it's incredibly important that you find something post-career that you're passionate about and that you can give of your whole entire self to whatever it is you're doing. And you already have that built into you, because that's what you needed to be to become a professional athlete. Was you needed dedication, drive, all these things that are easily transferable once you leave the playing field, and it's just, but it takes a while, and you need to try different things until you find, purpose and passion once again. It'll never be the intensity of, going on the battlefield every single night, but you can still find something that you're passionate about and that you care deeply about, and all those things. But I guarantee you, it'll probably have something to do with, helping people, and giving back. Yes.
Well, look, at the end of the day, I think everybody out there feels a whole lot better about themselves, and when they give back, it even if it's something small,
it gets you out of your own head. It gets you out of your own stuff, and you realize how fortunate you are, to have a roof over your head, and and all these things that a lot of us take for granted. And it's when you meet a person on their level and they explain to you what they're going through that you appreciate everything that you have. And not only that, then you want to improve the quality of life for that person that, that you're speaking to.
Absolutely. Well, look, we've covered a ton of ground today, and I truly appreciate your time. And, it's, I think that our listeners know how to find you now, and they know how to make an impact through you and your foundation. And I'm looking forward to everybody listening to this podcast, because it's I think it's going to get a lot of positive reaction, and that's what we're driving for here. So, thanks again for sharing your time on the Make Your Mark podcast, Theo. And you can always check us out on iTunes and any other platform that you're using to listen to podcasts. And
and make sure that you pick up Mark's book too. I had the honor of writing a small blurb for Mark, and you've been very helpful and willing to help whenever you can, and so that's always appreciated. And enjoy the relationship that that one little message on LinkedIn started this whole thing. So
that's awesome.
Keep up the good work, and I look forward to the next opportunity that we get to chat and hang out.
I appreciate that, Theo. Thanks for the kind words, and I look forward to the same thing. So everyone out there, have a great rest of your day, and thanks again to Theo, and we'll look forward to hearing all about it soon. Have a great day. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.